Well, hi everyone. I'm Andy Asher. I'm editor of Bloomer Boomer. Now, a pretty amazing person we'll be talking to today. It's not so much because he is a renowned spine surgeon with over 30 years experience. It's not so much because he describes how to conquer debilitating chronic pain without surgery and actually opposes it, but it's his own astonishing story called Descending into the Abyss. It's about his journey out of pain. He is Dr. David Hanscom, and his book, Back in Control, the summation of 15 years of learning both through success and many failures, his journey out of pain. Now, we're going to talk to Dr. Hanscom in just a moment. This is part of the Plus 50 Good Life movement, a project of the bloomerboomer.com publication where we bring stories and ideas from authors, thought leaders, and inspirational people. It's a movement for new and evolving things that make for a good life plus 50. The shows are about what's working and what's not, and how to make the best of it. In the end, hopefully something you can take away for yourself. Our guests are idea and thought leaders, experts, people with life experiences to emulate, folks with a unique expertise, or those that give us one of those aha moments or a revelation that can suddenly transform the complex and the bewildering into the understandable. Well, among those is our guest, as I said, Dr. David Hanscom, and his book is Back in Control. We'll be back with David right after this. Well, the best-selling book is Back in Control. Spine surgeon Dr. David Hanscom describes how to conquer debilitating chronic pain without surgery. Well, David, thanks so much for joining us. And did I describe your personal experience with pain accurately?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I'm always happy to share my experience, although I would choose not to do it again. But you did describe the experience. I was in severe chronic pain for 15 years. With the last seven of them being absolutely intolerable. So I became very, very lucky coming out of this hole, and it's been really rewarding passing on these concepts.
Yes, well, we're the beneficiaries of it in a way. So let me just get out right from the top. I'm sure you had patients, and there are people who are going to watch this and say, hey, doc, I know that I am experiencing real pain, and they want probably a substantive answer. That how do you address that?
Well, first of all, the way the nervous system works is that your brain's always comparing current experiences with past experiences. So the brain has to decide whether a given sensation is either pleasant or unpleasant. So pain is always interpreted in the nervous system. Second of all, the neuroscience research shows that thoughts are also sensory input, just like sound, sight, taste, and touch that are processed in the same part of the brain. So just thoughts can create the same sensations that other physical sensations can. So the problem is that so it turns out that when you have unpleasant sounds, taste, touch, your body secretes adrenaline and cortisol, which gives you the feeling of anxiety. Anxiety is just that chemical reaction to that sensory input. Unpleasant thoughts do the same thing, where you have adrenaline and cortisol, and you, again, feel anxiety. It turns out anxiety is just that chemical reaction to the environment, and it's unpleasant. And since anxiety is a strong reaction, people will do anything they can to avoid that sensation. So when you have an unpleasant sensation, you have a tendonitis or a bone spur or something like that that causes the problem. If it lasts for any period of time, 6 to 12 weeks, the brain starts memorizing the pain. And the most dramatic example of that is phantom limb pain, where a person has their leg or arm amputated because of vascular disease or trauma. And most of the time before the leg or arm is amputated, they have pain, which is the reason they had the leg or arm amputated in the first place. So most amputees feel some sensation of the limb afterwards. over half of them feel the same pain they did in the limb before the amputation. So that caught my attention in medical school in a big way. I'm going, wait a second, the leg is gone. We know that where the source is. But it turns out that the brain simply memorizes those impulses. It's like an athlete learning a skill. So you think in terms of pain pathways and repetition, and again, these impulses come in so quickly, you learn those pathways in about 3 to 6 months. The modern neuroscience actually documents that. You actually can see these pathways being laid down in chronic pain.
That's very interesting. So I guess in a way you can reverse that feeling of chronic pain over time.
Well, you can't reverse it. In other words, this is the tricky part of the whole process. In other words, once the pathways are in your brain, they're permanent. It's like riding a bicycle. So once you memorize any pain pathways or athletic skill, art, music, whatever, you actually cannot unlearn those. Just like you cannot unlearn how to ride a bicycle. So what you have to do, you have to separate and redirect. And since the anxiety reaction and the pain reaction is part of the unconscious part of the brain, you cannot do it with rational means. Because the unconscious brain has been documented to be 1 million times stronger than the conscious brain. So what happens, mind over matter doesn't work. It's a complete mismatch. And so there's ways of separating, decreasing the adrenaline, and moving in a different direction. The metaphor I like to use is simply diverting a river into a different channel. So the less you use the pain pathways, the weaker they will become. So at some tipping point, once the pain pathways start to atrophy and the other pathways come alive, then the pain does disappear.
Well, that's important to make that point. It's I guess an oversimplification, if not entirely wrong, to say it's mind over matter, isn't it?
Well, again, that's what all of us want to do. And this is the paradox I struggle with my patients all the time, and also myself. Because again, the pain pathways are permanent. I get triggered. If I quit using the tools that I teach my patients, within about 2 or 3 weeks, my symptoms come back. So these are permanent embedded pathways. And unless you use the tools on a daily basis to keep the nervous system calmed down just a bit, doesn't take much, your symptoms will come back. It also does not matter where the pain started. In other words, we have patients with tendinitises, back pain, muscular pain, or they have bone spurs, etc. So we found out now the last couple of years that even if you have a bone spur causing a pinched nerve in sciatica, for instance, that normally I would say do surgery on in a heartbeat, as you calm down the nervous system and reroute the pathways, I now have almost 100 patients that have canceled their surgeries because their pain went away without surgery. So it doesn't really matter where the pain starts. If you can reroute the pain pathways a different direction, de-adrenalize the nervous system, the pain really does go away.
Well, let me have you go over that one again, since I'm one of those people that have the sciatic pain. And how do you go about kind of reversing that?
So there's a process there's some research that started in 1982 called Expressive Writing. You simply write down thoughts and you tear them up. And it sounds a little crazy because I'm a major spine surgeon and I felt a little silly talking about this, but there's over 300 research papers that says this works. And you cannot control your thoughts. Remember, if you experience, so the problem that humans have compared to the animals, remember I said that thoughts go to the same part of the brain as the other sensations do.
Yeah.
The problem that humans have is that we cannot escape our thoughts. So when you suffer, suppress, or mask them, these thoughts continue to progress. So the human brain is under continuous adrenaline assault that gets worse as you get older. Okay? So what you have to do is you have to separate from your thoughts. So that's why we think this works, is that you simply write down your thoughts and you tear them up. The reason why people tear them up is for 2 reasons. One of them is to simply write with freedom. It does not matter whether the thoughts are positive or negative. But the second thing is not to analyze them. Because remember, your brain will develop wherever you place its attention. So if you're trying to fix yourself or analyze the thoughts, your brain's on the pathways. So what you're trying to do is get your brain going in a different direction. The reason that mind over matter doesn't work, that's a form of positive thinking. So when you suppress thoughts, it makes things even worse. The research is pretty clear that if you try to suppress anything, it actually causes brain damage. You actually damage the memory center of your brain. There's also a link between thought suppression and opioid abuse.
Wow, that's pretty complex, isn't it?
It is, but it's fascinating. I mean, I've sort of instinctively known this for a long time. And my first book, written in 2012, was based on my experience and my patient's experience. A friend of mine made it a hobby to look up the neuroscience on my first book, and the second book is a much different, clearer book based on the neuroscience. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of research now in thought suppression, and the essence of the problem is you become comfortable with uncomfortable sensations, so you quit fighting them. Remember, if you fight them, your attention's on the pathways, right? So as you separate, which the writing exercises do, and then redirect, then things start to happen.
Well, that's now the steps that you talked about is writing your thoughts and tearing them up and so forth. Where can people learn more about that? Obviously, your book is a real good place to start. That there are steps you want to take. I mean, how would you best describe or explain to someone how they go about, practicing that?
So what I did, I wrote the book in 2012, and I would give people the book. They come back and say, well, I read the book, nothing happened. So I developed a website, backincontrol.com, that has 4 stages, with this first stage being simply laying down the foundation of the process. And that involves the expressive writing and what I call active meditation. And there's 3 parts to reprogram the brain. There's awareness, separation, which the writing does that in 1 step. Then reprogramming can be a cup of coffee, phone call to a friend, mindfulness meditation, whatever you want to put in that reprogramming spot works. But you have to separate first before you can redirect. So the website has 4 stages. I recommend people look at it over the course of 6 months to 12 months. I'm still doing it. I still doing the process 15, 18 years later. If I quit doing my expressive writing, my symptoms come back. And I had over 16 symptoms of an adrenalized nervous system. So if I quit writing for 2 or 3 weeks, these little skin rashes pop up on my wrists. My scalp starts to itch. I had tinnitus ringing in my ears for over 20 years. That's gone. But again, if I quit writing, that symptom comes back. I had burning in my feet, which again is gone. But again, if I quit writing, that symptom comes back. So it's remarkable how effective that process is. What's fascinating and disturbing, again, there's over 300 research papers that document that the writing works in some way, shape, or form for different people. There's actually not one paper that documents that spine surgery works for back pain.
Yeah, that you hear that, and sometimes you're warned, in fact, not to use that as a solution to back pain.
Right. Well, again, the success rate for a spine fusion for back pain is 22%.
That's not too promising, is it?
No. I mean, that's where spine surgery is a deservedly poor reputation, because for some reason, I just heard one presentation by a company that looks at spine surgery as a growth industry, and they're estimating that by 2020 there will be over 1 million spine fusions performed per year. And I honestly think that probably 70% of spine surgery should never be done.
Yeah, I know that you've been quoted to say that, and that certainly makes one pay attention. And that's a whole nother discussion that we could get into, I think, sometime. But well, it's fascinating. Like I say, there's so much to get into. I guess someone who needs there's no quick solution here. We're not, but someone who has suffered through pain and watches this, what can they do to begin with to maybe start seeing some results?
So it can happen relatively quickly. I mean, it took me 15 years to figure this out, and so generally I would say between 3 to 6 months, people start to shift significantly. The reason why, there's 3 parts to getting better. First, the first step is becoming aware of the pain. Aware of the nature of chronic pain, which is a neurological issue. The second step is to address every aspect of it at the same time. So sleep, stress, physical conditioning, diet, exercise, all those make a difference, but they all have to be done at the same time. There is never one answer for chronic pain. The third part is the patient takes complete control. The good news through the website and reading, it's about a 95% self-directed process. So I've watched hundreds of patients go to pain-free. It's not about managing the pain. is about the pain literally disappearing. The other fun part for me has, of course, been the anxiety drops dramatically. And it turns out that unrelenting anxiety is just brutal. And it's just something that just tortured me. I did not become a major spine surgeon by suppressing anxiety. I became a major spine surgeon by not having anxiety. I suppressed it. So, what happens is that your body doesn't believe you. So I started breaking out all these physical symptoms instead of experiencing anxiety. But when your body's full of adrenaline, each organ system is going to respond in its own way. So you can't get away with it. At some point, you're going to get sick. I think we talked earlier about the family issues have been really powerful.
Yeah,
that's right. About that?
Yeah, that would be good. I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, what we found out is that chronic pain has a devastating effect on the family. There's research shows that the effect of the family is just absolutely devastating. And what happens when people are in chronic pain, they're frustrated, they're angry. Dr. Sarno, who was one of the pioneers in this type of medicine, called it rage. And you're trapped by anything, especially pain, you become upset. And then your body's always full of adrenaline, but when you're angry, it's all about you. It's a survival reaction. So what happens when you come home and you're angry, your family becomes the understandable target of your pain, but they don't deserve it. And so I ask my patients to actually ask their spouses and partners and kids about what is it like when I'm angry or upset. And the problem with pain is a legitimate reason to be angry, but they come back literally shaken up because they actually don't see the impact of anger on their family. There's another problem called mirror neurons, is that when you're angry, you actually stimulate the anger part of your family's brain. So you get this tremendous ping pong game going back and forth of the whole family dynamic being incredibly unpleasant. And until you actually, you yourself, the patient, can actually reverse that process, it's a big deal. So what I do now with my patients in the office, and I'm excited about this, it's a new take on it for me, is that one of the rules on the website is never talk about your pain. And I say, look, when you leave this office, you'll never talk about your pain again to anybody, ever, especially your family. And invariably, the partner or spouse just breaks out in a big smile. Even the patient often breaks out in a big smile. And just that process, remember, your brain's going to develop wherever you place its attention. And if you're continually talking about your pain, why it just really is tedious and forces pathways in a terrible way. I didn't realize how much people actually talk about their pain. So one of the biggest rules we put into place right now is simply not talking about your pain. I have patients occasionally ask me, well, what do I talk about? My reply is that, really your pain is not that interesting to anybody, particularly your family, even though they care. They get frustrated. Secondly, I said, look, when you walk out the store, I want you to spend the time in the car talking about the most enjoyable part of your relationship, and just spend time with it. And remember it, just pull that energy back into the car. When you walk into your household, bring that energy into the house and leave it there. If you become triggered or get angry, make an agreement ahead of time simply to withdraw. When you're angry, nothing gets solved because anger is only destructive. So make a commitment that you will simply not fight in your house. If you have to get into an argument, take it outside. So whether it's your kids, partner, spouse, whoever it is, simply make a commitment not to argue in the household. And it's been exciting to watch the early results from that. I hadn't really come across this until about 6 months ago, but I think it might be one of the most powerful ways of pulling people out of pain is simply changing the family dynamic. Pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that is certainly very exciting and can be applied perhaps to other family dynamics. Okay, so let's see. Could you give us the website again if people wanted to get some more information?
Yeah, it's backincontrol.com, one word, backincontrol.com. And again, it's a self-directed process. And if you look at my Amazon reviews, you'll see people all over the country having quite spectacular results just simply by looking at the book and the website. These are people that I've never met. And it's been really exciting and rewarding for me to watch this happen.
I can well imagine. That is very exciting, extremely exciting. Thanks so much, Dr. David Hanscom. And again, it's the best-selling book, Back in Control, Dr. David Hanscom. And he describes how to conquer debilitating chronic pain without surgery. We'll be right back. I hope you liked the show and learned a thing or two. The full show will be available on YouTube and at bloomerboomer.com. The audio version will be available on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. And we have other shows coming up with some amazing guests. Please like us on Facebook and visit us at bloomerboomer.com. So long.